Hey knitters, welcome to episode 209 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I'm your host, Devin Ventry. You can find me at KnittyMcPurly.com. I'm Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I'm Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. Welcome to the podcast. Look at all this light. This is a sunny day and tons of snow. It was the very first blizzard of 2025 this past week. Kids were home pretty much all week. Public school kids were off all week because the neighborhoods are just sheets of ice and no buses could make it through. My kids got a couple days off school. It was good. It was good. There was knitting. Knitting happened. Today, I am drinking tea out of my California mug in honor of the Californians who I know are struggling right now with the wildfires, especially over in LA. Much love to my California podcast watchers. I'm enjoying some Bengal spice out of my California mug. And you might be saying, geez, Devin, what is this that you're wearing? It's blowing out a little bit because of the extreme sunlight that I have. We got some sledders out there. I made this a couple years ago. This is my Molly sweater, which has some lace in the front. This is a really cool sweater construction because it's top down and you start here and then you go here and then you connect them and you knit down to the sleeve divide and then you do the same thing on the back and then you join them and you knit to the bottom. And this sweater pattern has sleeves, but this one I made out of Surrey silk and I did not do the sleeves, so it ended up being kind of a vest. It's a little bit wrinkly from being in my drawer. I tried to de-wrinkle it, but that's as good as it got. But it's so bright, the snow. Oh my gosh, there's like 2-year-olds on the hill. 2-year-olds in snow gear where they like can't stand up because they're so puffy. It's great. Let's do some progress and shop news. So I am very sorry that January's color of the month is sold out. I am really sorry about that because it was amazing. The reason is because of the retreat. I am in full-time, full-scale retreat mode right now, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But January is sold out. February is likely to be a little bit late, probably do that closer to Valentine's Day. Because, I'm a one-woman show and the retreat is a very big event. So I'll get to talking about that in a minute. There are a few sticks of the Sanctum hand balm left if you want one of those. I did make a lot, so I ended up we still have some. So go grab one if you want. It is great for this time of year. I don't know about you, but my hands are like on perma-dry. So this is changing the subject real quick. This is a slightly different angle I've got the camera at, and I love it because you can see my grandma's rug. It's like a hooked rug that she made, I think in about 2002, right before she died. She died in 2004, but I love this rug and I love when it shows up in the podcast. That's really cool. Anyway, the retreat is in 19 days. And I am doing this, it's my full-time job right now. So I have yarn coming, new colorways just for the retreat goers. And I'm gonna bring as many as I can. I do have to fly there. It's in Dallas. Why did I do that? I don't know, but it's gonna be great because it's gonna be really easy for other people to get to. There are so many Texan knitters and people who live within driving distance of Dallas who will be able to get there easier. My Pacific Northwest knitters are going to be able to fly in on one airplane and they don't have to rent a car if they don't want to. So it's going to be good. We're really excited about that. If you're coming to the retreat, keep an eye on your email this week. I will be sending out the final class list. And just go through and check and make sure that you're in the classes that you want. Email me back right away if you want to change it. And then I'm going to get that all printed out to go in the folders for the retreat. Yay! It's so exciting. One thing we're doing at the retreat is we are doing a stitch marker exchange. I talked about this after I went to the Arkansas Yarn Co. retreat back in September. They did this and I thought it was such a cute idea. You make some stitch markers, and we do have 101 full retreat attendees with a couple of extra day pass people. But there will be 101 people that we are going to be exchanging stitch markers with, and you don't have to make that many. You could just exchange with a smaller number of knitters if you want to. You don't have to participate. It's totally optional, but it's really fun, and in the end you come away with a stitch marker from everybody, and it's really, really cool. So people did shrinky dinks. People would just get a little charm that they liked, that, you know, was represented something that was special to them, and put it on a little safety pin or clasp of some sort. And those are just really cool and fun. So we're going to be doing that. If you're coming and you want to participate, I hope you will. It's fun. I don't want people to feel stressed about it. It's optional and fun. Anyway, one other thing I wanted to show you is this is an anthology throw patterned by Helen Stewart, knit by a lovely podcast watcher named Liz. Hi, Liz. Liz used my 2024 Advent, and oh my gosh, I can't believe she finished it. Wow. She knit this anthology throw. Now, I'm not too familiar with this pattern, but I can say that it starts in the middle and you work your way out to the outer edge. So what Liz did, because she knew that the Advent calendar went from dark to light, she opened it in reverse order. So she started with day 25 and then worked backwards. So what she did was she made a magic knot ball, which I don't exactly know what that is. I can guess what it is, which led to zero waste in the end. And it totally worked out. Like, she had enough yarn to finish the whole thing. That is the hard part of something where the bind off is that many stitches around. I think it's something towards 500, wasn't it, Liz? I'm not exactly sure, but it's a lot of stitches in the end. And it came out so, so beautiful. But this is a perfect example of the Advent because it has all the colors in there and you can see how they work together. I think it came out amazing. She did such a good job. Okay, next up, I want to talk about the February League of Extraordinary Sock Knitters. That is ready to ship. Danielle Miller. Danielle, hi. If you are listening to this podcast, please send me an email. I sent you a couple and I haven't heard back from you, but just email me because we need to talk. But anyway, I'm sorry to say that on the podcast, but I have been trying to get in touch with her. Anyway, those are ready to ship. They'll ship out mid next week around the 15th. So you'll get those in plenty of time to start your February socks. The League of Extraordinary Sock Knitters Facebook group is amazing. These knitters are amazing. If you're in the league and you're not a part of the Facebook group, search for it and request to join, and Emily will let you in. Emily, my wonderful Facebook coordinator, gosh, she is so great. She'll let you into that group. It is really fun. You get to see all of the knitting, all the different comments that people talk about, you know, what they're doing, if they're following the pattern exactly, or if they've changed it a little bit. You can see how people did the color placement. So yes, anyway, February is coming soon. Okay, in terms of my personal knitting, I have done a wee bit on my Traveler Shell by Andrea Mowry. Again, you know, I'm just working the bottom part of it. We talked about how I changed up the stitch pattern to be a broken rib as opposed to, so I've got, you know, I think this is, I don't know, both sides are interesting. I don't know which side I'm going to make the right side yet. But the original pattern by Andrea, let me see, looks like this, where she has like a ridged pattern, but you work it back and forth, and I just found it to be annoying to work. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't enjoyable to me. But I really like the shape of the sweater. So I thought, why don't I just follow the pattern and do a stitch pattern that's fun for me to knit? So that's what I've been doing. I've worked on it a little bit, not a lot. But, and I posted this on Instagram, I think last Sunday, because that's when I started it. I started a Swoncho. Remember last week on Knitting Fantasies when I showed this amazing Swoncho? And this designer, her name is Olga, she does a bunch of Swonchos, but when I look at it, I can tell that you're holding 3 colors at one time. And I just don't enjoy managing 3 colors at one time in color work. 2 colors is great. So I decided, instead of making that one, to make the cottage Swoncho, which is also really, really pretty. And there are some rows where you are holding 3 colors, and I feel like they're towards the top. And then after that, it goes to like all 2 color. And I could like, I'm thinking she's probably going, I've had enough. Like, this is enough yarn management. Just give me 2 colors. You guys, I got super far. Before I show you, let me show you my colors. I wanted the main color to be Meadow because I love this green. It is just the best green. I have green eyes and green looks good on me. Green is my color. So I love, love, love Meadow as the main background color. So you can see where she has like the gold, mine is going to be green. And then for my accent colors, I chose Fontaine and Trinket. And at first you think this is gonna be, it's gonna be full on Caillou. Like, this is a lot of bright. And then I chose to complement those January. I'm trying to get them so I can show you all at one time. Now, January has no yellow and it has no green, but it does look really good with Fontaine, and it just looks amazing in this sweater, if I may say so. I just think it's, I love it. January is great. It just came out so good. If you're coming to the retreat, I will have more January there. Everyone else, I am so sorry. But don't worry, because there will be more amazing colors coming. All right, it is on the needles. Oh my gosh. Isn't it great? Thank you, Jen V, who sent me these signature needles to try, which I am loving. They are great. Isn't it fabulous? So you can see in here, you're knitting like this whole section and then some parts up here where you're knitting with 3 colors. But it has been so, so fun. If you like color work and you're interested in a Swoncho, I really like the Cottage Swoncho. It's not a beginner pattern. It is DK. It's not a beginner pattern because, like I said, you are holding 3 colors at one time, and that is harder to do. And it's just a little bit annoying. Like here, there's like 1 stitch in this giant run. There are some really, really long floats where there'll be a giant run and then there's 1 stitch each repeat in that color. So it's not a beginner knit, but it's so fun. Like, it has become so addicting. And I just really wanted a Swoncho. I think they're cool. A sweater / poncho is a Swoncho. And I have long admired the Nanilchik Swoncho by Caitlin Hunter. But when I went to actually like purchase a pattern, I preferred this organic kind of floral, swoopy. I just liked that more than the geometric shapes that make up the Nanilchik Swoncho, which are probably a little bit easier to knit. And you might not be holding 3 colors at one time, I don't know. But anyway, I'm really excited about that. I love Sundays because I don't do any like work on Sundays, and that's the day that I get most of my knitting done. Otherwise, it's just, you know, waiting in the carpool line or at the end of the day when I'm all done. I sit and I work on my sweater, but really like, and sometimes homeschooling too. But this sweater does take a little bit more of my attention. So like last night we were watching a show and I was tired and I just picked up the Andrea Mowry sweater because it's just mindless. It's just a broken rib that is so easy to make. Okay, we have to get to the comments section because there were 1 million amazing comments. And there were a bunch that I didn't even pick to put on the episode just for time, but there were so many great comments. Okay, Patty. Do you remember Patty? Patty, who just has not knit a sweater because her husband, who was 20 at the time, in his defense, said something stupid. We all do dumb things when we're 20, right? And Patty says, "This is Patty. I want to thank everyone for the support, and I loved hearing other stories that really helped me and made me smile." So, good job, Knitty McPurly podcast community. We have made Patty smile. Good job. Okay, Professor Pearl. I love this comment. And she also sent me a picture, which I'm not going to share because she didn't give me permission to share it, but here's what she said. Professor Pearl said, "My first grader, Matilda, loves your podcast." Hi, Matilda. Thank you so much for watching. Are you a knitter? Or have you learned how to knit? Oh my gosh. Matilda is welcome on the podcast any time. She has all the states memorized in alphabetical order now, so the state mugs excite her. Is she a homeschooler? I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and say Matilda is a homeschooler. And then the moment you did the sweater thing, she said pause and ran into the room and tried it. And so she sent me a picture of Matilda with her sweater on with the hole in the back. Which I love. My older daughter is all on board with it. My high school daughter is like, "Mom, it's not cool. It just doesn't look good. It's not a good look." And some of you, I got that from your comments. Some people were like, "Great idea. I love it." Other people were like, "It's not a good look." So that's fine. We can agree to disagree. The Knitting Wanderer, hi Amy, said, "I think baby hats are such a great, quick gift for new babies. They are my go-to for coworkers and others in my life. With those very close and special, usually also getting a blanket." Wow, you are super generous, Amy, and an amazing knitter. She says, "I'm obsessed with bonnets for newborns. And although I think they are perfect for baby girls, I have found a few that work well for boys too, depending on the yarn. P.S. Thank you so much for sharing my in-progress socks and complimenting. I have yet to try colorwork socks, even though I joined Summer Lee's Colorwork Cuff Club when it began. Those Charlotte Stone Home is Where You Park It socks will likely be on my needles at some point. They are ridiculously adorable." Have you seen, I'm pretty sure Volkswagen has come out with a new bus. Is that the case? I feel like it is happening. I mean, that just needs to replace the minivan. I am exiting the minivan phase of life, but if I were going into it, I'd be like VW bus all day long. Lucia says, "My husband is knitworthy." A lot of you said this. I got many comments about knitworthy husbands. That is just beautiful. I love it. It is great. It is not my situation, although my husband, I have knit him a few hats, and those hats are MIA right now. Like, we cannot find them, mainly because hats go in the basement during the summertime and kids get in there and they move stuff around. And I don't know where they are. But he has been like, "Where are my hats? I need my knitted hats." So I think I might even just knit him a new one just because I'm happy to make him something. But anyway, Lucia says, "My husband loves hand knit socks and has loved all the other makes that I have made for him. Just today, I was looking at your Advent yarn and his remark was, 'Is that gonna be for me?' Oh my gosh, that is so great. I told him nicely that this one was for me since my last 3 knits have been for him, 2 hats and a vest for his Christmas gift. I would love to knit my husband a vest for Christmas and have him like it. That would be amazing." She says, "Therefore, there are a few husbands out there that are knitworthy and appreciate all the knitted items." That is great. And many of you said this, so I'm glad to hear it. Elaine, hi Elaine from the UK. She says, "I too have the first Charlotte Stone book and am patiently awaiting delivery of the second one here in the UK. On the latest video by Fruity Knitting, there is an interview with Charlotte where she talks about her designs, a great watch. Love the tale of the knitworthy husband. Hopes your family gets to enjoy the snow." That is great. A couple of you commented that Charlotte Stone is on the latest episode of Fruity Knitting, so go check that out if you haven't already. Oklahoma, Texas Sheep Lady, hello, says, it's amazing what brushing a sweater after every wearing does to reduce pilling, even on inferior yarn. Doesn't that feel counterintuitive? Like brushing would be what causes the pills? But she says not. If the sweater is a very fine fiber, such as cashmere, I use a baby brush. For a heavy mohair sweater, I use a fine wire dog and cat grooming tool and stroke up and lift the fibers rather than trying to smooth them. I have rescued some beautiful sweaters from the thrift store that looked hopelessly covered with pills. Now, you're using this preventively, but also for depilling. Now, what would you do for something like this? I haven't worn it all that often. It doesn't have any pills, but in terms of like brushing it regularly, this is Surrey silk only, fingering, lace/fingering weight. What would you do for this? Would you go baby brush? I would think so. Something like a wire tool I think might snag it. But what would you do for like a regular sweater? Like something, just like a regular superwash DK kind of sweater. Not that this pills very much. I have a bunch of sweaters out of this is Dubrovnik DK, and I haven't had any problems with pilling, but if you're using something that's more natural, like a Brooklyn tweed or a woolen spun yarn, what about like acrylic? Now I want all the details. You got to write me back. I don't know your first name, Oklahoma, Texas Sheep Lady, but write me back and give me all the details because I want to know about this. Pam Knits Too, hi Pam, says, I have the newer Charlotte Stone book, but I haven't done any of the patterns yet. I suggest using this book for next year, although it will be interesting to see what Summer Lee's new book will be. She has also started podcasting again. Yeah, I agree about knitting for others. I would love to knit for my grandchildren, but my daughter-in-law works in retail and doesn't appreciate anything hand knit. Oh, Pam, that is tough. The daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationship is already kind of fraught. And if you're a knitter and your daughter-in-law does not appreciate handmade things, oh, that's tough. I am really sorry. We're gonna have to, when my son starts dating, he's only 12, but when he starts dating, I'm just gonna have to weed him out and be like, do you appreciate knits? Because if you don't, just move on. Just move on. Nan says, that husband story is hilarious. I can relate. I never knit anything for my daughter or daughter-in-law without getting approval of the pattern or yarn so that they will wear it, and I never knit for money. Yes, people ask that all the time. I'm sure they ask you too. Well, could I pay you to make this thing? And you're like, do you have any idea how much money it would take? Like if somebody offered me the amount of money that the hand knit thing was worth, I would do it. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. I might not do it. It depends. It would have to be a ridiculous amount of money. Like I'll knit for you and give it to you, but you can't pay me enough money to knit for you. I know you guys all agree. You all feel the same way. Okay, Deborah has a great question. She says, I'm kind of embarrassed to even ask this, but here goes. How do you add another yarn, whether color work or just adding another skein without tying a knot? I had to add another skein when I knit up some socks. They turned out so cute, and when my daughter put them on, they completely split in half at the ankle. When I added another skein, I just wrapped the end of the new skein with the end of the old one around the needle and kept knitting. Now I just make sure I have enough yarn for a sock, or if knitting something bigger, I just tie a knot when adding a skein. The Afghan I'm finishing has knots all over the place. Okay, this is a great question. This is one of these things where people are like, everyone else knows how to do this, so I'm not even gonna ask. But not everyone knows how to do this. This was when I first started knitting, knots almost kept me from knitting. Like I can't possibly knit because I can't handle the knots because I didn't know how to join two different colors. There are several ways. Now, in the instance of this sweater, I'm gonna tie knots because it doesn't matter. It's not tight. It's not going to cause any fit problems. It's secure. In the case of a sweater where all the knots are on the inside, I will tie knots. Come after me with your pitchforks and your torches if you want to, but I will tie the knots. Or a hat. something like that, I'll totally tie the knots because it's not worth it to go to any more trouble. Now, in the case of a sock or something where you would feel the knot, or a blanket where you would see the knot because you're using both sides, in those two instances, what I would do is I would do what you said, kind of, you know, twist the yarns together a little bit and then just leave a tail on both yarns and then weave them in very securely. That's what I would do. I would weave them in real good in the case of both the sock and the blanket. So you'd weave it in just like you'd weave in any other end, and that's what I would do. If anybody else has any more comments on that, feel free to leave one. When we get to the topic of the week, you'll see that I am wrong sometimes. And it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. I really appreciate when people correct me because I would rather have the right answer than persist in ignorance. So, okay, Melissa also made an anthology throw with her Knitty McPurly Advent. I would love to see that, Melissa. Send me a picture when you're done, because I would imagine maybe you did it backwards, where you started with the dark in the middle and went to the light. That would be so cool to see. Melissa says, my husband had the nerve to say this. I said that my goal is to finish my anthology throw with my Knitty McPurly Advent. Oh gosh, what did I say? 500 stitches? It is 1,153 stitches on each row at the end. I had to take a break and I just recently picked it back up. He says, why the rush? What are you gonna do with it when you're done? So I said, what do you mean, what am I gonna do with it? It could go in a museum. It's going on the back of the couch for everyone to look at. He said, and use it? Absolutely not. It took me 1 million hours to knit it. Yes. How does he not know this? Oh gosh. Okay. B says, a question. A while back, you got some kind of warming rack / oven to dye the yarn. I remember it was supposed to arrive and then didn't. Did you ever get it? Do you like it? Has it made your job easier? Okay, that was more than a question. Okay, so yes, I got a warming cabinet, a restaurant grade warming cabinet to dye my yarn. Now, there are 1 million of these things out there, and different ones get up to different temperatures. I have had to get creative with it. I'm not gonna go into all of the details of it. If you're interested, let me know and I'll tell you the story of the warming cabinet. But yes, I did get it. Yes, I do use it every time I dye yarn. Yes, it makes my life so much easier. It is way better for dyeing yarn. There has been a learning curve. I have had to adjust some practices, but it has been a huge boon. It uses the same amount of electricity as one burner, and I had 12 burners. Like, I could not get enough electricity to power those. Okay, gotta move on to the topic of the week. We're running out of time. Here is what happened. A lovely knitter named Hannah sent me a message. She is making a Hepburn sweater, and Hannah must be a math person, because she sent me this message. Let me pull it up. Hannah says, hi Devin, I've purchased the Hepburn sweater pattern some time ago and I'm now ready to start the project. I'm trying to figure out the correct size, and the measurement B shown on the last page doesn't make sense to me. I did a quick calculation and what is shown as B should be 10.5, not 8.75. So she included this picture, and long story short, Hannah is right. The schematic shows that the raglan shaping line is the yoke depth measurement, which is 8.75. But Hannah said, wait a minute, look at this. We have a right triangle here, and a squared plus b squared equals c squared. She did not say that, but that is what is happening here. So I thought about it, and I said, I explained to her how I got 8.75, because there are 92 rows in the raglan shaping, and with the row gauge at 41.5 rows equals 4 inches, that means that the yoke depth is 8.75. And she says, yes, but it's a triangle. And I thought, in my mind, I'm thinking, Hannah is right. That makes sense to me. However, I have been designing for 9 years and I've worked with 5 different tech editors and 6. I've worked with 6 different tech editors and not one of them has pointed this out to me. So am I wrong? I was wrong. So I said, I see what you're saying, and that's a good point, but it's 92 rows. Or, you know, in this case, they're rounds. It's 92 rounds, and 92 rounds equals 8.75. I said, but I get what you're saying, so maybe I'm wrong. Let me get my sweater out and let's check. So I took this little video. All right, so to investigate Hannah's question, I pulled out my Hepburn sweater and I put a stitch marker here to mark the beginning of the raglan shaping, and I counted out 92 rows just to be sure. I mean, it looks like it's 92 here, but I did count them out for 92 rows. And then I measured them, and we are at like exactly 8.75 inches, if you can see that. Now, I understand triangles. I know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that is just a fact. However, because there are 92 rows, it seemed like this measurement should also be 8.75, but of course it's not. Hannah was correct. So of course, when we measure the hypotenuse of our right triangle here, we get 10.5 inches, just like Hannah said. So this is a new idea to me as a designer. I feel like it shouldn't be, but it is. So yeah, I don't know if other designers have taken this triangle into consideration before, but we should. So thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much for your comment. Thank you so much for your question. You were right. Math always wins. Sometimes the math just isn't mathing. And math always wins. Math wins in the end. She's right. So essentially, the error in the pattern, the yoke depth is 8.75, but that is a straight down measurement. The hypotenuse of the raglan shaping, it's just labeled wrong in the schematic. So that is, I'm gonna have to go back and fix that schematic and probably some other patterns too, because I think it's just labeled wrong. But you know, gosh, I feel bad for not catching this earlier, but thank you, Hannah, for pointing it out to me. Has anybody else had this problem with my patterns or anyone else's patterns? Because that right triangle. And so anyway, I sent her a message and I said, you were right. Watch the podcast today and I will go through it. And she says, I'm so glad. The reason I was confused is because I wanted to figure out the size, and 8.75 just seemed too tight, but on the pictures, it didn't look too tight. So anyway, I am very glad. So that all of the directions in the pattern are correct. It's just that label B that is labeled in the schematic as the raglan shaping ought to be that straight up and down line. So just because you have been doing something for years does not mean you've been doing it correctly. My husband has often said that, and that's really true. I mean, we all make mistakes. So there it is. Okay, moving right along to knitting fantasies. All right, I have picked a couple of Swonchos because I love them. Swonchos are so cool. I showed you one from Olga last week, a different one than the one that I started that I thought was really pretty, the one with the bees. That was so, so beautiful. And again, the reason I didn't pick it is because there's a lot of knitting with 3 colors in that sweater, and I just didn't want to. It's not fun for me. So I liked this one. This is called the hoodie poncho, but it is a Swoncho because it has the sleeves. This is really cute. It has a hood. It only comes in one size and it costs almost $9. I kind of feel like for that price, you ought to offer a few more sizes. Also, this woman, it's hard to tell in these pictures, but she has a little video on her Etsy of her wearing the Swoncho, and it looks like it's just too big for her. A couple more sizes would have been nice. And I don't think you need to have 8 sizes for a Swoncho, but maybe 3 sizes would be nice so that you can accommodate, someone with a tiny little frame and someone with a much bigger frame. Like, you really need to be able to accommodate more than one size, I think, even for a sweater with this much ease. Anyway, this is knit in Drops Tweed, which I looked up. It was not provided that it was DK weight in the description. Europeans, I guess, use the drops and they assume that everyone knows, but Americans, we don't know. So I looked it up. It is DK. Almost all the Swonchos that I have seen are DK weight. I guess people figure if you're wearing a Swoncho, you want it to be a little bit heavier than a fingering weight. My next pick is by Tammy Gore, and this one is called a Swoncho, although it's kind of a hybrid between just having a longer depth yoke and being like a full-on Swoncho. But it's cute. It's called the Keeley Swoncho, and it is also in DK, and it comes in 3 sizes, which feels to me to be a good number of sizes, especially for something like this pattern, which has a more fitted end result than other Swonchos do. Okay, moving right along so here's what happened. Today's story comes to us from June from New Zealand. This is a great story. I would love to be June's best friend. Hi, June. Thank you so much for sending this in. You sent me this back in November, so thank you so much. I'm so glad I finally got to it. She says, I am a weekly watcher of your podcast. Congratulations on your recent 200th episode. I live in New Zealand, so buying your yarn and coming to your retreat would be prohibitive, but I watch your shop developments with interest and enjoy experiencing them vicariously through your podcast and the comments of others. I always look forward to this segment and do not want you to run out of stories, so I thought I would send in a contribution. Thank you so much, June. I'll take this opportunity to say, if you have a knitting story, please send it to me. Devin with an I at KnittyMcPurly.com. I would love to read it on the podcast. Nothing is worse than when I don't have a story to share because it is everyone's favorite part. June says, a few years ago, I have returned to knitting and I have rekindled my love for the hobby. You could probably say that I am addicted. I love YouTube and Ravelry and knit lots for myself, my family, including my 2 lovely grandsons and some for charity too. The knitting world is so big and wide now, it is almost unrecognizable to when I first learned. I was taught to knit by my mom, and in our family, it was a rule that we had to be doing something with our hands while we watched TV in the evenings. I love that. I have not made that a rule in my house, but I am always doing something with my hands while I'm watching TV. Just to watch TV would be like the height of laziness, right? She says, my dad did tapestry and cross stitch. My brothers did hooked rugs, and my mom and I did our knitting. Because of this, I became quite experienced even as a teenager. I would have loved to live in your house, June. I would have loved that. That would have been amazing. No offense, Mom, and to my own family. I love you guys too. It was the 80s and knitting was always bottom up and seamed. I knew one cast on and one cast off and had never heard of any difference between English and continental knitting. I would buy yarn and a basic 1-page pattern from the wool shop and then, without doing any sort of a swatch, adapt it. I had no fear of color work, including purling, and intarsia featured highly at that time, so I would experiment with colors. I always did drop shoulders with crew necks and dreamed of one day writing a book called Knitting Without a Pattern. That is awesome. The crew neck drop shoulder was everything in the 80s and the 90s even. June says, even when I left home to study nursing, I was quite prolific and remember on occasion knitting a sweater for a friend's birthday. The sweater I want to tell you about was one I knit for my boyfriend at the time. I saw a picture and did my usual adaptation. From memory, it was blue and green with a bright red zigzag across the color change. It looked something like this, which is now considered vintage. My boyfriend appreciated it and was happy to wear it. Life moved on as it does, and we went our separate ways. By the way, I've heard of a curse of the boyfriend sweater, so we could blame that, but it doesn't always apply. For 30 plus years, I've been happily married to the next boyfriend that I knitted for. A while later, probably the next winter, I was out and about walking around town and I spotted the aforementioned ex-boyfriend. He was out biking around with his new girlfriend. I was very surprised also to see the sweater, not on him, but being worn by the girlfriend. Isn't it great that they could both get some use out of it? She says, blessings to you and your family. Thanks for all you do, and I look forward to many more podcasts. I love that story, June, and I love your attitude about it. I think I would feel the same way, like someone else loves my sweater. It would be great to follow what happened to the sweater, like what happened to it? Where is it now? Did that current girlfriend keep it? Did they get married? Did they break up and she kept it? Because that would be like the curse of the boyfriend sweater, right? Where you keep the sweater. I don't really know what it is, but sounds like that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I feel like this went long, but it was great to see you guys. As always, I feel like we hang out once a week, and I'm sad when I don't see you guys. So have a wonderful week. Happy knitting. Can't wait to show you the progress on my Swoncho next week. Yay, I cannot wait. All right, bye knitters.